I know this thing is on, and I know that you can hear me. Nursing and healthcare needs advocates and activism. So what are you waiting for? So welcome, Ellies, to the Green Nurse Podcast. Before we get started, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Yeah, I'd love to. And thanks for having me. So I have been a nurse for about 12 years. I've been a nurse practitioner, family nurse practitioner for about 5. I started my journey of nursing back in cardiothoracic progressive care unit. And that's where I got my feet wet, figured out some stuff. About a year in, I moved into critical care where I spent the most time. So probably 8 years doing that. Learned so much. A lot of fun, a lot of different emotions working in critical care with heart and lung transplants and everything like that. And so near the end of that, I think I was feeling the emotional toll that really took on me. And, I think a lot of nurses kind of think this way. I had done charge nursing. I had been a mentor, preceptor. It's like, what's the next step? Oh, I should go back to school, right? Like, that's the only thing I could do.
Right.
I don't want to be a manager, so I better go back to school. And so I started, I went back to NP school. During school, I actually was able to work in a dual role nurse role.
Okay.
So that was awesome. And I highly recommend that for somebody that likes the bedside, but needs a little switch up in the flavor. So I did part of my hours in PACU and part in ICU. So I got to kind of like have a different pace every day. I really, really enjoyed that. And that made me feel a lot less burnt out, I'd say.
Right.
So then COVID happens. I just got married. My husband and I are like, let's just take off to Colorado,
using
have an
mixed methods
adventure, we'll be
approach
outdoors.
Feedback
I need a new job anyways as an
1,500
NP.
Canadian
Turns out
music
it's pretty
workers,
tough to
bringing
find that
creativity
first
and humanity
job.
to
So I
every
did a
space
little
she
bit of
works in.
travel nursing in Colorado, and I did CTICU and then into the MICU, which turned into the COVID ICU, let's be honest.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah, and so that was like kind of just before the vaccine came out and then after. So saw a lot of nurses really having a tough time. I think we all were at that time. And I think that's where the wheels started turning, because I would see, this nurse I admire has so much experience, such a great nurse, is like, I'm going to become a real estate agent. And it's like, if that is your dream, you go for it. But if it's because you really think this is the only thing that you could possibly do with your skills, that's tough.
Yeah.
And so I moved on from there. I did a little bit of SNF nursing and then kind of got into like more community-based role where I would see some of our sicker patients, like Medicare, Medicaid, a lot of SDOH needs in the community, go be an extra resource for them as a nurse practitioner in the home. So a little bit of remote management in there and different things. So I've done some of these non-traditional roles, and people kept asking, how do you do that? After mentoring a bunch of friends, I'm like, I needed a resource back then. I had to figure it out, and everyone else seems to too. So like, let's just make one. So that's where the non-traditional nurse came in. So just trying to create, as long as I can, a free platform that just helps nurses explore what they can do and really just like actionable advice for how to get those jobs. So that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, no, I think that's amazing. And I think that it is a blessing to have people who've kind of, paved the way and now are helping other nurses, because I would say this is something I hear all the time. Nurses are just like, I love nursing. I want to stay in this profession, but through burnout, through, whether it's harassment or bullying on the job, workplace violence, various different factors that make someone say, well, I don't think I can continue. Right. Mm-hmm. And then it's just, I feel so bad when I hear someone's just like, like you said, maybe I want to be a real estate agent. Again, fine. If that was what you had your heart on, then absolutely. But if it's just like, I feel that I don't fit into this space anymore, I feel like that is such a huge loss, and that's horrible. But I want nurses to know that it's like, okay, well, you don't have to stay at the bedside, and you shouldn't be looked down upon if you do change your mind and do something different. Nursing is nursing, and you could do that in a variety of different ways and in a variety of different roles. And having someone like you in this space to be like, hey, here's how you could do it, or even just seeing that, it's really rewarding for a lot of nurses. So I think that like what you're doing is super important. And I could say I'm definitely in a non-traditional.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. And it's just, I never would have thought I would have been here, because I thought I was going to be like a bedside L&D nurse for life. Like I was just like, that is what I'm going to do.
Absolutely.
I wanted to help people bring babies into the world for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And then, yes, burnout hits, racism hit, lateral violence is what hit the hardest, actually. Like out of all of those things, it was just, the nursing bullying. And I was just like, this is going to take me out. And it did. And then I was just like, okay, maybe it's not for me. But then finding my voice and being like, hey, maybe I could use my voice for a different purpose in nursing.
Yeah.
And I think that's where people need to see that there are various different opportunities that they can tap into, and that if their love and passion for nursing is there, and it still is there, that they can find other resources, right?
Absolutely. And I think I really underestimated the shift your priorities take like throughout your life. You, like you said, you graduate as a new nurse. You're so excited. You're like, oh my God, the dream. If I could be a charge nurse someday, like I've made it, right? Gasp. Like, can you imagine? And then like 4 years in, you're doing that. You're like, wow. But then, as life happens, and like, especially like after having a baby, like my priorities are just so different. And, some people thrive in that 12-hour shift and they like that, but that was not for me at that point either. So, I think there is always a nursing role that can fit your needs in life. And like you said, people just need to understand there is a place for you in nursing if that's what you want. And if you really enjoy this profession, which I think so many of us really do.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I think that so many nurses just hearing that will just be like, okay.
It's okay. Yeah.
Okay, right? That they feel
Yeah.
that they can find that space to still feel valid as a nurse and as someone who's within that profession. Because I remember it hurt. It hurt feeling like the profession didn't need me, that I didn't feel like I belonged. And I'll be honest, it is a lie. Like, I feel like a lot of that was, bad people. Cause again, I think it's important to like pinpoint what the problem is, right? So like,
Sure.
yes, nursing inherently has some challenges,
Yeah.
but also being able to focus, and this is obviously retrospectively, that it's like that individual shouldn't shape and color my entire experience as a nurse. And I didn't want that to. And I wanted to be like, how can I mobilize what happened to me and try to do better for the profession? And that's where I kind of ended up in my non-traditional role. I definitely don't have to get into it. I think my listeners probably have a pretty clear understanding of where my non-traditional role is. But what is, in your experience, what is the biggest misconception that, bedside nurses have about transitioning into a non-traditional nursing role? And how would you help them kind of overcome that?
Yeah. So I think one thing that I hear a lot, I don't do like coaching specifically one-on-one. I just don't have the capacity for that.
Right.
But I do help out, if people reach out to me, I'll try and give them a call when I can and just, give them as much advice as I can. And I think I hear this a lot, someone's at the bedside, they're not feeling good about it. I'm looking for a remote role. It's like,
Right.
You can't just look for any remote role because that is not going to fill your cup, Like,
Right.
You have to really, I think the biggest part of finding that next role and being happy with it is the discernment process. And I think that should take up like a huge, huge amount of your job search, because if you're applying to just hundreds of roles, anything that says nurse and remote in it,
Right.
it's going to be so frustrating. You're going to get so many denials. People know that you're not like focused on that role if you get an interview, and it's just not going to make you happy. Like, think about if you love working with people, you don't want to be chart auditing all day. But other people love that too. So I think that piece of the puzzle is so important. And it's so easy to just doom scroll job boards and say like, I just need out. But really like giving yourself time to make that transition, focusing on, okay, I really think that this remote role would be a great fit for me. And then you can put like all of yourself into that. You narrow it down to a few different jobs that you really think you'll enjoy. Then you can apply to them really intentionally. You can cater your resume to them. You can network with people working at those roles, talk to them, get internal referrals. And I think I've just seen so much more success that way. Because, you hear from nurses, they're so frustrated, and then they just give up the job search altogether. And I think that's a big part of that.
Yeah, no, I would say that if I think about it in terms of just like what you were saying, scrolling those nursing boards and seeing like, oh, remote, and just I think even just the exhaustion of just applying and getting rejections is very difficult. And again, if your love is to be at the bedside, then maybe remote nursing isn't the thing that you should do. Like, I mean, for me, when I got into quality improvement, I was like, all right, I don't mind this. So if
Yep.
you don't mind, if you don't mind being a little bit more quiet, I'd say, and I know
Yes.
we can't use that word when we're in nursing, but you prefer to be a little bit more, recluse, then, that might work for you. But again, there are so many different types of opportunities. So maybe with that, could you tell us a little bit of some of the opportunities that you've seen on some of the job boards that might point people in a different direction?
Yeah, there are, I have like a career map. I have over 80 on there, but there's so many more than that. And I mean, it can go from things you hear a lot about, like legal nurse consulting. Nurses are working on AI models, like in the informatics space. That is just going to become bigger and bigger, I think, and really, really cool. You can hire a nurse, if you had a mother that was like kind of sick, but not needing like an Aeromed flight, but needs to get to another state, you can hire a nurse to fly domestic with her,
I saw that recently. I was like,
Yeah.
what?
There's end of life doulas. You can be a lactation consultant. You could be a nurse on a cruise ship. Like there's just literally everything. So I think, yeah, thinking of the skills that you really enjoy. I'm learning every day. By no means am I an expert. And that's what I love about this is I'm connecting with people. I do interviews with people that do these jobs. So they give you their advice, not my advice. And they're doing the job. And they tell you how they got into it and how it worked for them. It's truly like an endless list of things that you can do. If you can dream it up, I think you can do it. I think nurses are underrepresented in a lot of decisions and things. So I hope to see nurses at more tables. And just because, it's not a nursing role doesn't mean a nurse can't bring their clinical knowledge and really nail it.
I think that 100% that nurses should take up space in different places
Yes.
we're not expected to be in. I remember thinking to myself, okay, so like, what's my next move? Where am I going to pivot to? And I'm like, well, they don't have a nurse here. Then I'm going to just slide my way into this.
Yeah. Tell them why they need one.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
I think nurses would find it so enlightening to have that moment where someone's like, yeah, I never thought that I would even think about a nurse to be in this role, but that's where we need to be, like in these little cracks where people don't think that we have knowledge, skill, and judgment, that we can actually prove to them that, not saying, and again, this is not a knock to bedside nurses, but it's just to show the vast expansion that we have in terms of our role and how much different things that we're multifaceted, how many different things that we can actually do, right?
Yeah, and that's a big like mindset shift for nurses. We are so bad at tooting our own horn and like saying it's like all the skills you learn at the bedside are so transferable. You have the skills you need for those roles. You just have to learn how to tell people about them. And we're bad at it. We take care of people. We don't take care of ourselves. So
That is like a whole other podcast.
yeah, right.
Just talk about the fact that we're like super great advocates for, our patients, our families. And then we're like, we got to advocate for ourselves. What? And it's like, no, like this is where the rubber.
I guess I'm okay at my job.
Why? Yeah.
We struggle.
And it's just like, we should be able to even celebrate and kind of like, hype ourselves up. It's okay to be like, yeah, I did that. I'm in space. I'm doing that. And we were taught to be like,
yeah,
a little bit more demure, a little bit more fancy. It's like, no, we don't always have to be like that.
Absolutely.
And you're absolutely right, where you kind of talk about, those valuable skills that we could bring. Maybe just for nurses listening who are just like, I don't know, what could be transferable? What are some of the transferable skills that you think can go from, bedside to a non-traditional role?
Yeah, I think some of the main ones I think about a lot. So nurses are project managers. Like that's what we do every single day. Our brain is a Gantt chart. We organize so many different teams. We bring them together. We make sure everything's on track. If we know something's not right for this patient to be in the OR at the right time, we're figuring it out and we're fixing it. And I think you can really speak to that in interviews. And there are project management roles that are not always for nurses, but I've talked to people that hire for them and they're like, nurses make incredible people, especially for like medical device companies and things. I think communication is key, like same with working with all of those different teams. So those are ones that I speak to all of the time. But I mean, there's so many different ones. Advocating for patients, the list goes on. Really anything that you can talk about, your attention to detail and your charting, things like that. All of those can be talked about in a way that really sets you up for success in different roles.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that we limit ourselves. Like we both were talking just about like, okay, look at all the various different things that we do. We project management on a shift. We problem solve. We are doing 50 different things. Like we can
Absolutely.
prioritize, triage. It's just like there's so many different skills that we have that we
Yep.
get from this role and translate it into another role. And I think we shouldn't minimize the fact, like I hate when I hear a nurse be like, I'm just a nurse. It's like, whoa, you have
Yeah.
no idea how much skill you have. You're not just a nurse. You're like, there's so much more there, right?
Just a nurse like should be just like X'd out of the
Exactly.
vocabulary.
I agree. Just take it right out, right? You did mention a little bit about technology, and I want to just talk about a role that you've done and
Yeah.
maybe you just kind of shine a little bit about like informatics. So,
Mhm.
could you tell us a little bit more about nursing informatics, just in case there's someone who's listening that's like, hey, that might be something I want to do?
Yeah, absolutely. Informatics is such a big, wide scope and an umbrella. I did like kind of a deeper dive into it and like she spoke to it so well. But really, informatics is kind of, you're like the middle person between, especially in like a institution setting, you know, between the clinicians that are actually doing the work and then the technology and the engineers and everyone that is making like all of the products. So we don't always have that nursing bridge. I think when nurses are end users, we should always have that bridge, right? Because those are the people that can advocate. It's great when nurse informaticists have like a very good clinical experience that they can speak to. I think that if we create this charting tool, then we're going to run into these problems, things like that. So that's like a standard informatics that you hear about a lot, but I do see really anything with nursing technology, I think kind of falls under that umbrella. And AI is going to be really big with this. There is a lot of companies that are creating AI tools geared towards nurses. Some of them have nurses on staff, some of them don't.
Right.
All of them should have nurses on staff or nurse consultants. So those are times where I think you can really make a use case for yourself that, you know, you're working as a nurse in this, they're trying to make a tool for you. You should at least, you know, be a consultant to tell them where they're going wrong or things like that. So
Right.
I think those are a couple different avenues of informatics that are super relevant today.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you how many times. Well, I mean, like, I haven't been in the hospital setting for a little while, but I couldn't tell you how many times that, some piece of technology came down or equipment that I was like, was there a nurse involved in
Yes.
this? Because this shit don't work like this. This does
Yeah.
not work with our processes, with our workflow, with,
I know.
like it just doesn't make any sense. So I think again, we should be there. And
Yeah.
I do want to, I'm going to just touch on this very briefly, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of conversations around AI and nursing and healthcare.
Hmm.
And first, I'm going to just say this. Nothing will replace, because I think there's a lot of fear out there.
Yes.
Nothing will replace human connection.
Absolutely.
AI cannot, and they've seen this time and time again. They just can't figure out that piece where where it's just like, all right, you know, information in, but they just can't get that other human aspect emotion. They just can't.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of fear surrounding like, oh, are they going to remove nursing jobs? Elon Musk is like, oh yeah, they will. No, they won't. And again, I think one of the things I've spoken to some folks that are actually doing some work in the AI world, nurses that are doing work in the AI world, and they're just like, I think that there is an assumption on, these tech bros side where they're just like, yes, it could do so much more. And then there's another side that are tech bros as well that are like, we are overinflating how much AI can actually do because there's a lot of money at stake here. There's a lot of
Yeah.
money being poured into this type of technology. And always just remembering at the end of the day, you cannot replace a human being. We just can't. It's not going to happen.
Absolutely.
That's just my thought. Again, there's data sets that show, remember, because how AI works, it's information in, whatever's put in is
Yes.
a part of the algorithm. And there's just some things that it just won't be able to compute for. We've seen in mental health where, there's biases.
I was just going to say that. It pulls in all the same bias that we
Right.
see.
So again, it's so important that there are nurses that are
Yeah.
there that are like, this ain't going to work.
Yeah,
But
we
yeah,
need to be the final clinical decision makers for sure. And I think the nurses I've talked to in that space are really saying, it's kind of like using ChatGPT in your life. I mean, it doesn't replace you at all. It's an extension and it's an
tool.
assistant to you. So like, I think some of the best use cases are, how do I break this really complex topic down to something I can educate at a 5th grade level?
Right.
Things like that are just so cool that you can use the tool. So I think looking at a positive way of how can I make this easier? How can I decrease my administrative burden? Always thinking about it in an ethics and safety type way. But yeah, I think not trying to be anti-AI is important too, because, we are seeing more tools like this in the future.
Absolutely. And I think the other piece is just like, remember it is a tool. Like you said, it's an adjunct. It's something that's going to additionally help the work that we're already doing. Like in labor and delivery, we have, I think it's called fetal monitoring. But again, it's what we say is it's a stress test, but we don't necessarily, but it's just a tool. It doesn't necessarily tell you how the patient's feeling because you have to touch them.
Right.
It doesn't, you have to be able to feel what's happening with the fetus. And again, at the end of the day, because it's a screening tool, because we don't know what the end result will be when they have their baby. There's sometimes we're chugging along, doing our fetal heart monitoring, everything looks good. Baby comes out flat. We're like, what happened?
Yes.
And that's just to keep in mind that we have all those additional things like the ability to look at our patient and see like what's physically happening, the ability to touch our patients. All of those things will never be able to be replaced. And
yeah, it's like the same as a sepsis alert that's been around for a while. It's a form of artificial intelligence. We use our brain to say the heart rate is high because they just ran 4 laps around the unit. Like they don't have sepsis right now. So yeah, it's exactly the same. It's been around us longer than we even realize. And we've always used our brain to figure out the clinical decision making. So I think nothing changes there.
Absolutely. And I mean, if you've heard my recent episode on sepsis, Canada does not have national standards, but we'll leave that for another episode.
Work to be done.
Yeah, just a little bit of work to be done in the world of sepsis. The other piece I want to talk about is you are a podcaster. And I think that, you have a podcast called the Nontraditional Nurse podcast, correct?
Yes, I do.
So what was your spark or motivation behind starting? I think it might be explanatory, but maybe not. But maybe tell our listeners why you started the Non-Traditional Nursing podcast.
Yeah. So really, it comes down to wanting to create this resource for nurses. But like I said, I am not the expert because I have not worked in all these roles. And I don't think there's any better way than to hear it from someone who has walked the walk, right?
Right.
And so I almost equate it to, if you worked really hard on LinkedIn to network and you finally land just this bomb nurse who has the job that you want and you get them on the phone for 25 minutes. That's what I want to accomplish with these. It's almost like doing your first networking call for you. So we just talk about, how they got where they got, what the role looks like, what a day-to-day might be. We try and get into the nitty-gritty of not only the perks, why they love it, but what are the challenges and, what is tough about the job, because every job has its perks and challenges.
Right.
And then in my newsletter, I try and break it down a little further and talk about salary and different things like that. So I really just want you to get a really good understanding of that role before you go full on, networking, job searching. So it's just a really good way to explore. And it's been so fun. Have explored so many different career paths that now I'm wow, I wish I had 3 lifetimes to work in all of these different ones. There's just so many cool things that we can do. Some really inspiring nurses. So it's been fun. I'm new to podcasting. Like we said, not good at tooting our own horn. So I'm always shy about telling people I have a podcast.
Now there's going to be some people that might know.
Yes. But yeah, that's kind of the whole goal of it, is really to just give people the information that is sometimes really hard to find.
Yeah, no, I think, and that's an important resource, right? I think that's that extra little, okay, you've done your search. You're like, I might be interested in this job. And then now someone who's doing a podcast with someone who's doing that role is just that, holy crap, that's the window. Cause you could have a variety of different reactions. You'd be like, yeah, that's the job I want to do. And they'd be like, no, that is not what I want to do.
Yeah.
It really kind of helps you with, decision-making as to what should your next step be, right?
Absolutely.
But one more question for you. Well, maybe two. You had a post on LinkedIn that got lots of comments about nursing school.
Yes.
And I ask this question all the time to myself. Why didn't we have non-traditional clinical rotations? These rotations would be super important to not just, our nursing practice, but just to understand the world around us. Because I think sometimes we're very insular. We're like, this is what's going to happen in nursing. You're going to work at the bedside and that's it. And it's okay, no, there's so many other things. Yeah. So maybe tell me about your idea behind having non-traditional roles in clinical rotations.
Yeah, I love LinkedIn because I think it just brings about great conversations that would never be talked about. And so, yeah, that one really took off. And that's how I knew, like, okay, obviously we're missing something here, right?
Right.
Because, I mean, you meet nurses that have worked for 10 years and they have no idea that there's all these non traditional roles. And I think one of the biggest things that on that, people kind of against that idea was that, you really need this strong clinical base before you jump into these roles. I don't think that's necessarily always true for every single role. I do think it's true for a lot of roles, though. I think that what makes you, a good legal nurse consultant is going to be like your experience and things like that.
Right.
And I don't think this would have to take away from any of your clinical experience. I think it would actually improve that if students understood that, hey, to be an RN first assist in the OR, this is the path I have to take and I have to get them this much experience. And then if they really think that that's something they want to work towards, getting a taste of that in school and understanding what that path looks like, I think could be really important and beneficial. And I think, what I find too is nurses feel wildly unprepared for a non-traditional job search.
Right.
Everything's so black and white in bedside, right? You get your nursing role and then your friend tells you there's an opening on their unit and you move over there. A lot of people either stay in the same facility or the same general area or specialty. And it's really so different when you're trying to break out of bedside. And nursing school, that is one big thing too. People do not feel prepared by nursing school. So I think whether it be a formal clinical rotation or just a class that kind of runs alongside your leadership, that teaches you how to network, and then you could maybe shadow, everyone could present on different non-traditional nursing roles you could learn from your class. So, I've thought a lot about, I don't like to complain without coming up with solutions. So I'd love to be a catalyst for change in nursing education. So it's something for sure that I'd love to work on in the future as I find more time. But I just thought it was a really interesting idea and something that really seems like it resonated with a lot of nurses.
Yeah, I think it did. And I think that just broadens the conversation about, nursing doesn't have to be this one thing, right? I think that even when I was in nursing school, nursing was very like, here's what makes a nurse, right? And you have these various clinical components, you have these various different task components, you have these various different like theories. And it's just like, okay, so I did all of that and then I got into a job and I was like, holy hell, what happened? Because, and for some people, like, nursing, they go right from high school to nursing school and their first job is working with, in that situation. And I don't know, I'd probably say it doesn't really prepare you with dealing with some of the scenarios that we do deal with in nursing. Yeah. And I think it's so important that we pull in various different disciplines. I actually had a break in my nursing school. So I did 3 years. I got into a car accident and it's a long story. So I took some time off and instead of just, well, maybe I will throw this in. So I had asked for accommodations to which my nursing school was like, no,
God forbid.
I know. Yep. So I was like, well, what am I going to do in my spare time? So I decided to do like biological and sociocultural anthropology. And I was like, well, that is an eye opener, learning about people. And I was like, oh, this is absolutely transferable. So when I was able to go back into nursing, I just had this whole different idea of like, how do you communicate? How do different communities learn? How do I learn as an adult? And it was just like, oh, wow, why doesn't nursing talk about different disciplines? Why don't we, branch out and learn from different groups and different scholars? I think it would benefit us. So I completely agree with you that opening that up would just make it more like there's no harm to it.
Yeah.
Like,
I know. I think a lot of room for
right?
improvement in nursing school. And that was just certainly one idea. But even, there's roles that are even more bedside like, but they're still so non-traditional, like corrections nursing. Some schools cover it, some schools don't. But like things like that to see, that is a well-loved profession. People enjoy it. And there's a stigma to it. Like you just would never know. Like chatting with, I tried to get a job there and I couldn't as an NP because everyone loves it so much. Like, just hearing more about like what really could be out there because you just don't know. You have this like small mind of what nursing is, and I think it could be so much expanded on.
Yeah, there's so much opportunity. And I think that I really hope that our schools start looking at, one, definitely advocacy, and then two, definitely like where are the different spaces that nurses are needed and where can they go? And I think that I couldn't imagine that they don't have time to do it. So I just think it's more about like, okay, nursing is evolving and we need to evolve with
Yeah.
it, right?
We have not evolved with it. Like even the non-traditional changes in the last 10 years since I started, like school has not like kept up with that, I don't think.
Well, that's okay. We're the we're the ones that are going to start changing it.
Yes, we are.
I do feel a little bit of a different energy with, I'd say probably, people within our age range and, some of, I guess this would be millennials, I don't know,
Yeah.
that are kind of coming, behind us, that there is an energy to make nursing look very different. And I am excited as all hell.
I am too. It's
Right?
been fun.
So with that, before we go, is there anything that we haven't touched on in relation to non-traditional nursing that you think a nurse would want to know about?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think that I talked a little bit about it, but the actual like finding of jobs right now, it is a tough job market, and these remote roles and everything are so in demand. And I think remote feels like just the answer to everyone's prayers. And sometimes it is. I think there's a lot that goes with that. And I've talked with some other nurses about this, is when you do leave nursing, there's this really big shift that has to come with it. A lot of us have trouble with it. We have this sense of urgency at the bedside that we cannot leave behind. So when I was a remote nurse manager, it was like I was answering Teams within 30 seconds. I was not eating my lunches. I felt like I just had to be there for my team. And it's just like kind of ingrained in you that you just need to be on at all times. And we don't take care of ourselves in the hospital at the bedside generally. And so I think that really understanding boundaries, setting systems up for success, because people do burn out remotely as well. So
Right.
you really miss out on sometimes the camaraderie that you have at the bedside. I think that is overlooked as well. So just understanding kind of some of the challenges that come with remote work as you're looking at what's next for you and talking to people who are actually doing it. I think, networking calls and even shadow shifts, if you can do it, are some of the most beneficial things ever to see if you're really going to want to commit to that role. So those are just a couple of things I've noticed as I've talked to lots of nurses about this.
Yeah, no, I think that those are really important points. And I really like the piece of just kind of reaching out. I think nurses are very hesitant on LinkedIn to just, maybe send that first little message to say, hey, I'm actually, or to a recruiter to say, hey, I'm interested in this. Is there any way I can get more information? Or even just reaching out to someone to be like, you're doing this work. Do you mind even just 15 minutes telling me a little bit about it, or whatever the case may be? And
Yeah.
we shouldn't, because I think most people are like, yeah, let me tell you what I'm doing, or whatever the
Absolutely.
case may be, right? I think we'd surprise ourselves when we have a little bit more communication with others and understanding that most people are willing to, say, hey, let me help you out here.
Yeah, think about nurses. They love helping each other.
Course,
And you will get
right?
ghosted because also nurses are bad at LinkedIn. So they might not even see your message.
Yeah,
But it's okay.
yes,
Not
pros
everyone
and
will
cons to
answer.
everything.
Yeah. So just throw out way more than you need and someone will answer and give you their time. And it's going to be the best like conversation that you have.
It's like cast your net, expect that you won't get answered all the time, but even if one person answers, that's a world more of experience than you had than not trying, right? I think I
Yes.
always say yes to, never say no where it could potentially be a yes. If an opportunity comes your way, just say yes. What's the worst that can happen? You can be like,
Yes.
okay, well, I didn't like that, and
Yeah.
then move on, right?
And the bedside is always there if you need it.
Absolutely. I said to myself, I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm doing a lot of work in, like in the politics space and national nursing space. I'm in some health consulting space. And I'm like, well, if there was ever a zombie apocalypse and I can't do the work that I'm doing, I will go back to the bedside and I will help.
Yes. And
So,
some
yes,
people
it's always gonna
actually
be there.
fall back in love with the bedside because they try other things. And that's a beautiful thing too. We need bedside nurses. Nothing about this is trying to pull people away from the bedside. It's for people that are looking for something different.
And that's okay. So I think
Yeah.
that if you want to be at the bedside and you're happy where you are and you're feeling passionate, then that's great. If
Yes.
you're saying that you want to do something different, then that's okay too. And it's
Yeah.
fine to go back and forth. It's fine to be like, all right, I tried that. I had the taste. I don't like it. Or, oh, yep, this was my yum. We're not going to yuck anybody's yum.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, it's okay to try something new. And I think that's it's so scary, right? I think change is something that most people really have a difficult piece with. I'd say nursing, when it comes to change, we're not the best.
No, yeah.
But I think that we can change that. I know that I said change a lot, but
no.
I feel
Absolutely.
that we can move the needle on that. So thank you so much, Ellie, for coming on the Gritty Nurse podcast to talk about non-traditional nursing. I'm sure that there's so much that my listeners have learned. I've learned a lot as well, too. And I hope that we stay in touch.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. This was a blast.
Looking for a great gift for a nurse or someone who needs to learn about nursing? Check out my national best-selling book, The Wisdom of Nurses, Stories of Grit from the Bedside. Thank you so much for listening to The Gritty Nurse with Amie Archibald-Varley. If you're watching on YouTube or listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or any other podcast platform, please hit the subscribe button so you'll never miss out on any awesome episodes from The Gritty Nurse. Thank you so much and stay tuned until next time. Stay gritty.